The moment a narcissist realizes you have won is not when you argue louder, nor when you try to prove them wrong. It is when you are silent, calm, and living a life they can no longer touch. For them, this is not just a loss. It is the collapse of an entire illusion. Because true power has never been in manipulation. It has always been in the freedom you reclaim for yourself. And when they realize this, when they understand you are never coming back, that is the moment they fear the most. In today's video, we will dive into this shocking truth. What really happens when the narcissist is forced to face their ultimate defeat, the defeat against your awakening. If you are seeking the strength to break free from toxic cycles, make sure to hit subscribe and stay until the very end. Because I believe what you're about to hear could be the turning point that transforms your entire healing journey. 1. The collapse of illusion. There is one truth few people realize. The narcissist does not truly live in the real world. They live in their own universe where they are always the center, the main character, the one who controls everything. In that world, everyone around them is just a supporting actor, placed there to elevate them, to praise them, to make this story they write for themselves appear real. And for a time you once played a role in that script, perhaps unconsciously, perhaps out of love, perhaps out of compassion. You smiled when they wanted, you stayed silent when they raged, you explained yourself whenever they twisted reality. But the truth is this: every play eventually ends. The narcissist builds their entire life upon an illusion, the illusion that they are invincible, irreplaceable, the soul you must forever orbit around. As long as you continued playing in that script, they still held power. But when you began to see through the deception, when you stopped and no longer wished to perform, everything started to collapse. This is their greatest fear, the collapse of illusion. Imagine at a grand stage, brilliant lights, an audience silently watching. The main character stands there, confident, powerful, drenched in glory. But suddenly, the audience leaves. No more applause, no more admiring eyes. The lights go dark. And on that stage, they are left completely alone. No witnesses, no validation, no reflection of the greatness they believed was real. That moment for a narcissist feels like the end of the world, because they do not live on truth. They live on validation. And that validation you once provided. When you cried, they felt important. When you raged, they felt powerful. When you begged, they believed themselves to be the irreplaceable center. But when you are silent, when you walk away without needing them, when you live in peace without proving anything, the walls of illusion begin to crack and shatter. What they fear is not losing you. What they fear is losing the version of themselves that you once helped them maintain. And here lies the deeper truth. Their power was never truly in their hands. It was always in yours. It was you, through your reactions, through your endless explanations, through your sacrifices, who kept the script alive. And it was you, through your silence, through your steps away, through your proud choice of peace, who brought down the entire play they thought would last forever. When the illusion collapses, what does the narcissist really face? Not just the loss of a relationship, but the loss of an identity. Because they never built their self-worth on truth. They built it on reflection, on the image others created for them. And when you no longer reflect, what do they see? A void, an emptiness they have been running from all their life. They may try to cover it with new smiles, new relationships, dazzling pictures on social media. But behind that mask lies the truth. They cannot escape. No one can replace you. Not because you are perfect, but because you are living proof of the truth they tried so hard to deny that they were never enough. And that is why your leaving becomes a fatal blow. It is not loud. It does not need warning, but it shakes them to the core. Because what they lose is not just someone who once loved them. They lose the mirror that once protected, once reflected, once filled the void they dared not face. And now, with that mirror shattered, they are forced to face their true face. And that face is not as strong as they believed, not as powerful as they once thought. It is fragile, cracked, filled with unhealed fears. This is the collapse of illusion. And it does not happen because you screamed at them. It does not happen because you proved them wrong. It happens simply because you chose to walk away. You chose to stop playing a game that was never fair. And that is your victory. Not victory in the sense of one over the other, but the victory of awakening. When you understand that love is not the sacrifice of freedom. When you realize that your worth is not determined by another's validation. When you choose peace over chaos. The narcissist may never admit this. They will continue to run to construct new illusions. But deep inside, they know they have lost. And they lost not because you destroyed them, but because you are no longer under their control. And one day, when they look back, they will remember you. Not because they truly love, but because they miss the power they once had when you were still there. But do you know what? That is the clearest proof that you have won, because their illusion has collapsed. And from its ruins you rise, walk forward, and build a new life, a life no one can ever manipulate again, a life that finally belongs to you. 2, your silence, their obsession. There is a truth few ever notice. For ordinary people, silence can be rest, a chance to listen to themselves. But for the narcissist, your silence is an unbearable obsession. Because in their world, silence is not a neutral space. It is a threatening void, a vacuum that swallows the very sense of power they once clung to. The narcissist does not live on truth. They live on your reactions. A worried message from you is proof they still matter. A single tear is proof they still hold power. A plea, an argument, even anger, all of it is fuel feeding their fragile ego. They do not need real love. They need connection, even through suffering, to reassure themselves that they still command your attention. And then you go silent. No more sleepless nights waiting for explanations. No more endless arguments where you fight to prove the truth. No more tears shed for scraps of concern. You step away quietly, no words, no fight. You simply disappear. That is the moment that terrifies them the most. Picture this. Their entire life is like an actor who survives only on their audience. They only feel alive when eyes are fixed on them. But when the audience leaves, when the stage is empty, when there is no applause, no gaze, no reaction, they do not just lose you, they lose themselves. Your silence to them is like a mirror draped in black. Once, whenever they looked into you, they saw a powerful reflection of themselves. But when you are silent, that mirror stops reflecting. And in that darkness, they see only emptiness. A brutal truth. They are not as important as they thought. Of course, they will never admit this. Instead, they create new illusions. They post smiling pictures, flaunt happiness with someone else, pretend they've moved on. But behind those images, fear gnaws at them. Why aren't you reacting? Why aren't you jealous or hurt or demanding to know what I'm doing? It is your silence, not your words, that proves they have lost control. They may send a casual message to see if you reply. They may stir up drama, spread a rumor, or create an event just to test your reaction. But if you remain silent, if you keep walking calmly forward, it wounds them more than any accusation ever could. Because your silence says, I am no longer playing your game. Do you know why they fear silence so much? Because silence denies them the chance to manipulate. In silence, they cannot twist reality. They cannot recast you as the guilty one. They cannot push your emotional buttons to control your mind. Silence strips them of their only weapon, power over your reaction. For you, silence might seem like a simple act, but for them, it is a revolution. For the first time, they cannot predict, cannot impose, cannot grasp what is happening inside you. And for someone who exists only through outside affirmation, not being able to read you or sway you is the beginning of collapse. In their eyes, your silence is not just absence, it is betrayal. It is a complete rejection of the power they once thought was untouchable. And here you win, not with accusations, not with revenge, but with composure, calm, and the resolute choice of peace. You do not need to scream to be heard. You do not need to prove yourself to be validated. Your silence speaks louder than any words. In silence, you reclaim the most precious gift, freedom. Freedom from endless cycles of argument, freedom from control, freedom from carrying the burden of another person's emotions. And that freedom, more than anything, is what terrifies them. Yes, they will miss you, but what they miss is not you. What they miss is the power they once had over you. And when they realize that power is gone, when they understand your silence is no longer waiting, but liberation, that is the moment they know they have lost. You do not need to go back to teach them a lesson. Your silence is the lesson. A lesson they will never forget, that you chose yourself and that you are no longer a supporting role in their story. And that is the greatest power you could ever give yourself. 3, they lose the mirror of reflection. There is a truth few people recognize. Narcissists cannot truly see themselves through inner eyes. They do not really know who they are, nor do they genuinely believe in their own worth. They exist by borrowing reflections from others, and you once were their clearest, brightest, and most important mirror. Every smile you gave, they turned into proof they were lovable. Every tear you shed, they interpreted as confirmation of their power. Every time you forgave, they took it as evidence that they were special, irreplaceable. You may not have known it, but in their eyes, you were the mirror reflecting the image they craved, someone great, powerful, and worthy of admiration. And because of this, you became the very core of the false identity they constructed. But one day, You stopped. You no longer reflected them. You withdrew the light that once illuminated them, the energy that once sustained their fragile ego. And in that moment, they were forced to confront the very thing they feared most their entire life, the darkness within themselves. When you were still there, they never needed to face a real mirror. They only had to look into you to see the image they wanted to believe. But when you walked away, that mirror shattered. And for the first time, they had to face an undeniable truth. Without you, they had nothing left to hold on to. This is what makes your departure different. You were never just a lover, a friend, or a companion. You were the witness to a greatness they never truly possessed. When that mirror disappeared, what remained was not only loneliness, but an emptiness of self, a crack in the house they had built out of illusion. Imagine someone who spends their entire life standing before a mirror that never shows the truth, only the image they want to see, and then one day that mirror shatters. They don't just lose a familiar image, they lose the very sense of existence they once clung to. That is why narcissists often panic when you go silent, when you leave, when you refuse to keep proving their value, because in that moment they have nowhere left to run from the truth. And the truth is this: within them, there has always been a void that no one can fill but themselves. The problem is they don't know how. They don't know how to look inward, how to heal, how to love themselves. They only know how to borrow images from others. And when you no longer reflect them, everything falls apart. They may search for a new mirror, a new relationship, a person willing to repeat what you once did. But deep down, they know it will never be the same. Because no one can replace the role you once played. The one who saw them, who tried to understand them, who gave all your empathy. That is why they don't truly miss you. What they miss is themselves in your gaze. They miss the sense of power you once gave them. They miss the specialness you helped them believe in. And when all of that disappears, they are left disoriented, asking, who am I if no one sees me that way anymore? This is the tragedy they will never admit. Because to admit it, they would have to face the truth. Without external mirrors, they see nothing. And that truth is so painful that they would rather build new illusions than confront the cracks in their soul. But for you, this truth becomes liberation. Because when you stop being their mirror, you reclaim your freedom. You no longer live to maintain someone else's image. You no longer contort yourself to preserve their illusion of greatness. You are free to live for yourself, authentic, whole, and unbound. And this is the true victory. Not because you defeated them, but because you freed yourself from a role that was never yours to play. You are no longer the mirror of their illusion. You have become the mirror for yourself, reflecting strength, growth, and the love you now give to your own soul. This terrifies them, but it makes you shine brighter than ever, because you haven't just walked away from a toxic relationship. You have stepped out of a play you never should have been cast in. They lost their mirror, but you found your true self, and that is the most valuable thing of all. 4, your freedom is their defeat. There is one thing the narcissist never expects: to see you free, because in their world you only have value when you remain bound. They need you dependent, anxious, revolving around them like a planet around the Sunday. And for a long time, you unknowingly gave them that power, adjusting your emotions to fit their moods, sacrificing your desires for a sliver of peace, believing that keeping them satisfied was the only way the relationship could survive. But then one day, you awaken. You realize that love is not captivity. You understand that unconditional sacrifice does not create happiness, it creates chains. And you choose freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of emotion, freedom of life. That moment is their greatest defeat. For the narcissist, defeat is not losing you. Defeat is losing control over you. As long as you are still consumed with them, whether in love or in anger, they still win. But when you no longer react, when you no longer let them define your worth, they know the game is over. Picture this. Their entire life is like a puppeteer pulling invisible strings of emotion. They pull, you react. They go silent, you worry. They blame, you apologize. But suddenly, you cut the strings. You are no longer dragged by their moods. You stand tall, proud, and walk your own path. That is the moment they realize their power has vanished. Your freedom is not only a physical departure, it is an inner liberation. You no longer stay up at night wondering what they think. You no longer obsess over whether their love is real. You no longer drown in the cycle of promises and disappointments. Instead, you begin to enjoy your own peace, reading a book simply because you want to, meeting people who make you smile, doing the things you once abandoned for fear of displeasing them. Every step you take in freedom cuts deeper into their illusion, because they see that they are no longer the center of your universe. You still breathe, still live, still shine brightly without them. And that is the deepest wound for someone who only exists through another's dependence. The narcissist may pretend not to care. They may claim you mean nothing. But the truth is, when they see you free, they are haunted. because your freedom exposes their truth, that they were never as strong as they believed, that their power existed only because you allowed it, that they are not irreplaceable. Do you know what terrifies them most? Not your hatred. Hatred is still a form of attachment. What terrifies them most is your indifference, because indifference proves you no longer need them, no longer center your life around them, no longer define yourself by their presence. And that is the most bitter defeat, the defeat before your freedom. You no longer ask permission to be happy. You no longer need anyone else to confirm your worth. You become the master of your own joy, your own sorrow, your own future. Meanwhile, they, no matter how hard they try, remain trapped in their cycle of dependence on others' reactions. This difference leaves them stunned. You are free while they remain stuck in the illusion of power. You are growing while they flounder in an emptiness they can never fill. You are moving forward while they remain imprisoned by the obsession of having lost something they can never regain. And then, when they see you living a full life without them, they will realize that true victory is not in keeping someone tied down. True victory is in letting go and living authentically. But that is a lesson they cannot learn, and they don't need to, because the point is no longer about them. The point is about you. Your freedom is not only their defeat. Your freedom is your rebirth. It is a powerful declaration. I am enough, I am worthy, and I can live happily without anyone else defining my value. And that is the ultimate victory, a victory without shouting, without revenge, without needing to prove anything. Simply by living free, you bring all their illusions crashing down. 5, the moment they are forced to face the truth. There is one moment every narcissist fears most, the moment when all the illusions they built with charm, with sweet words, with cunning manipulation, finally collapse before their eyes. It is not the moment you leave in anger. It is not the moment you expose them to others. It is the moment when you are silent, you are free, and you are living a life where they no longer exist. In that moment, they don't just lose you. They lose the entire world they once believed was theirs. For years, they believed they could define you, control you, and turn you into an extension of their ego. They lived with the conviction, as long as you react, I still have power. But then one day you stop reacting. You no longer rage. You no longer ache. You no longer try to prove anything. You step out of the spiral, carrying peace and dignity. And in that moment, they are forced to confront a cruel truth. They never truly had the power they thought they did. What terrifies them is not your departure. What terrifies them is that your departure exposes a truth they have hidden all their life. Inside them, there is only emptiness. You were once the mirror, once the stage, once the source of energy sustaining their illusion. But when you no longer play that role, they are forced to look directly at themselves. And for the first time, they see clearly their confidence was only a mask, their power only borrowed, their love only manipulation. This moment does not arrive with thunder or lightning. It arrives quietly. In the evenings when they sit alone and realize their phone no longer lights up with your messages. In the mornings when they open their eyes and know you are no longer spinning in their orbit. In that stillness, fear rises. They have lost their most vital source of validation. They may try to hide the fear with a new relationship, with dazzling photos, with stories of success, but deep down, they know what they lost was not just a person. They lost an audience, one who was patient, loving, and sacrificing enough to make them feel worthy, and no one else can fill that void. This is the moment they are forced to face the truth. They are not invincible. They are not the center of the universe. They have no right to define you or anyone else. The irony is, they once believed you would never dare let go. They were certain you were too attached, too loving, too dependent to ever walk away. But you did. Not in anger, not in hatred, but in awakening. And that awakening was something they never anticipated. For you, this moment is liberation. For them, it is collapse. They will try everything to escape the truth. They may blame you, smear you, even twist the story to paint you as the villain. But at night, when all the noise fades, the truth echoes in their mind. You have won. And your victory is not because you destroyed them, but because you refused to let them keep destroying you. Do you know what makes this moment most bitter for them? The fact that they cannot undo it. They may reach out, send messages, feign regret, whisper sweet words, but you are no longer the same. You no longer respond as before. You no longer see them as the center, only as a piece of your past. And when they realize their return has no meaning, that is absolute defeat. The moment they are forced to face the truth is also the moment you prove that real love never requires losing yourself. You prove that peace is more valuable than empty promises. You prove that once you know your worth, no one can ever take it from you. And while they wrestle with emptiness, you are writing a new story, the story of someone who stumbled but stood back up, stronger, wiser, and freer. That is the difference. They remain trapped in illusion. You walk forward into the light of truth. And what is that truth? The The truth is you never needed them to be whole. You never needed them to define your worth. And once you realize that, they lose their power forever. This is the moment that makes the narcissist tremble, but it is also the moment that sets you free. When a narcissist is finally forced to face the truth, it is not just the collapse of a relationship, it is the collapse of the entire false world they worked so hard to build. But remember this, that collapse does not happen because you struck them down with anger or revenge. It happens simply because you chose a different path, the path of awakening, the path of freedom. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to sacrifice yourself to be accepted. You don't need to prove your worth in anyone's eyes. Your silence, your indifference, your freedom are already the clearest answers. When you walk away in peace, you are not just leaving a toxic relationship. You are sending a powerful message that real love never comes with control, that true connection is never built on fear, that compassion does not mean losing yourself. The narcissist may never admit their defeat. They may continue to wear new masks, to seek out new mirrors, to reflect the image they want to see. But do you know what? The truth doesn't need their admission. The truth shines in the light you now live in the strength you are building, in the freedom you are enjoying every single day. And that truth is the eternal victory. A victory not about who wins or loses, but about you finding yourself again. Victory is when you learn to love without losing yourself, when you learn to give without being exploited, when you learn to walk away without guilt. Look back at your journey. You were once fragile, once wounded, once in tears, but today you stand here stronger, braver, wiser than ever before. That is the proof that you are no longer a victim, you are the victor. And this journey is not over, it is only beginning. From here, you will continue writing a new story, a story not centered on old pain, but on growth, on freedom, and on the belief that you deserve a love that is kind. If these words resonate with you, let me walk with you on your journey of healing and awakening. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any videos. Every week, I will share more healing messages, more inspiring stories, and more insights to help you grow stronger, freer, and happier. And always remember, you do not need anyone's permission to live a meaningful life. You are enough. You have always been enough. And from this moment on, you are the living proof that truth and freedom will always triumph over illusion.